Yes.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you for joining us. But I think first you're going to introduce, right? So I'm going to
Yeah, I will
stop.
just, yeah, I will.
Yeah.
So welcome everybody on behalf of STEMPeers. I'm hosting this session today, and it is my pleasure to introduce Richa and also Radhika today. So Richa is currently at NIH. She is a scientific project manager at NCATS, and her main responsibility is managing preclinical drug development projects for rare diseases. So a lot of people confuse it with program officers at NIH, but she will explain how this is different from uh, program officers and what exactly is scientific project manager's role. Um, she did her postdoctoral studies also at the NIH, and she had been a member of the neurobiology interest group. She was a co-chair of the steering committee, and she did her PhD from National Institute of Immunology, Delhi. So she had come a long way, and we are very excited to have you, Richa, and listen about your stories and how you landed this job. And as for Radhika, she is currently a program manager at BD. And prior to that, she worked at Thermo Fisher Scientific as a global product manager in cell biology. She was she also worked at the Scripps Research as a research associate, and she did her PhD from Marquette University. So we are very excited to have you, Radhika, and want to listen how exactly you are now a program manager at BD, and what is the role and how you landed this role from your experiences. So with this, I will let you guys start the session. Only one thing I'll like to say that we have a donation link which we are sharing at the Facebook Live. Please, if you find this platform useful, donate something so that everybody is benefited. Thank you. Now you should go ahead, Richa and Radhika.
Thank you so much, Agar, for the nice introduction. And I am so happy that I'm back with STEMPeers again. I have been on the other side previously, and it's good that if I can help all of you who are here in any possible way. And we are here just to talk, so please feel free to ask anything, talk about anything. So I do have a couple of slides just saying things about what my current role is, my journey. So I'll just go over them. And before I start, I just want to tell everyone, like, I love these two quotes. So it's the decisions you make. And it's always like someone told me, when you think about landing in a job, don't always think to get the dream job as your first job, because your dreams keep evolving as you mature, as you learn about new things. So like, be on the lookout, just go for things, and you'll slowly see that everything, what you put together as a person, then you'll put that into your job, and you'll find the thing which keeps you happy. So I'll just, so let's see. Okay. So I think in terms of my journey, yes, I did my PhD in cell biology at National Institute of Immunology, and I see a couple of familiar faces from NII. So hi. And over there, I was doing like host pathogen interactions and just basic cell biology. After that, I moved here to the NIH for my postdoctoral training, where again, it was cell biology, but slightly different. It was more in the neuroscience field, but again, it was very basic and just, I mean, I was working on a novel protein, trying to understand where it's localized, what its function are. So it was very basic. And at that time, like, I always kept like kind of thinking whether I want to go into industry or academics, or where do I? So I was, I mean, my postdoc was, I would say, decently successful, but in terms of my project going well, my PI being supportive. So there were lots of things which, like, as you usually think, okay, like PhD, postdoc, and the next step is going and setting up your own lab. So I was also kind of thinking in those lines, but then I was kind of always divided, like, is that what I really want to do? And then I started thinking about different career options. And I was lucky, like, that at NIH, we do have an annual career symposium where lots of people come and talk about things and what they do. And that was one place where I got introduced to various other career options. And then I did start speaking to a lot of people at STEMPeers and getting to know more. And in the meantime, I was also lucky enough that NIH does offer this opportunity where you can detail in another office. So you're basically employed by a postdoc supervisor, but you can go and volunteer in some other office. And I did reach out to a lot of people because I was interested in project management, and I was lucky enough to get such an opportunity. And again, lucky enough that that detail opportunity actually transformed into a full-time position, which is scientific project management at NCATS, where I'm currently. And I will talk a little bit more about the resources I utilized for this transition and all, but just to briefly go over my current role and what I do is, so I am more into project management. So what our group does is preclinical drug development. And as you can see, like when we are developing drugs, there's like, it has a long life cycle where it can actually get into the clinical trials. So we have a lot of collaborators who come in where they will have their drugs, they'll have their lead candidates identified, but then we do all this preclinical drug development, which has several phases, and several types of studies, like testing the safety of those drugs, manufacturing it in GMP scale, and doing pharmacokinetics, and lots of different types of studies. And in our group, we do have discipline leads who are taking charge of those studies, and they are heading those. But as project managers, we have to interact with lots of different kinds of people, and just like different stakeholders who are key partners in the project. So it's our collaborators. Then since you have collaborations and this is drug development, so you also need like some sort of agreements, legal agreements. So we do have strategic alliance, so we have to interact with them. Then the discipline leads for conducting all those studies, regulatory experts, because all this, whatever we are doing, has to be approved by the FDA. So making sure things are aligned. And like so on and so forth. Like we contract out a lot of studies to CROs, because like NCATS doesn't have in-house capability of like doing GMP manufacturing or the safety studies which are required for the FDA requirements. So again, working with the CROs and doing contracts and all those. So as a project manager, my role is just to be like serving as a primary point of contact for this whole huge team, and also ensuring that everyone is really aligned towards our end goal, which is taking this drug product, making it ready for the clinical trial. So, so that's basically the kind of work that I do. And so it's a lot of operation, management, communication, ensuring resources are available, and then asking the right questions from the right people, like, so distilling all the information from different areas, presenting it to all the other stakeholders so that everyone is aligned. in getting this project towards the drug towards the clinic. And so the qualities in general for a successful project manager are being able to distill all the scientific expertise, knowledge, and being a team player, which like we have like huge teams. They vary from like 10, 12 people to like 30 or more. So it's like very variable. Managing people, because there are lots of different personalities, and we have to ensure that people are not, like, no one is really putting themselves ahead of the team or ahead of the mission. So managing different personalities, timeliness is very important, because drug development takes many, many years, and we know that patients are waiting. So and effective communication, which again like comes being with in a team, and being, and like attention to detail, because that's very important for the regulatory submissions and filings. So these are a couple of qualities for being a successful project manager. And this was a nutshell of what I do. And I'll just go over my job search journey, because I think that's going to be the most valuable for all of you who are here. So I have categorized it into a couple of different buckets. Like, so having like a structured approach, like thinking about the big picture, like what you need to do for a job search, like making to-do lists and timelines and trying to achieve them. And also like having a vision of where you want to go. And accordingly, you should like carve your skill set. Then putting yourself out there in different situations so that you're able to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. And then playing your strengths towards trying to find the new role. And having the elevator pitch, I think everyone has heard of that, and tailoring your resume is, of course, very important. When it comes to searching for jobs, I would say keeping flexibility, exploring opportunities everywhere around. I know it does take a lot of time, but in the end, it's very valuable. Perseverance, and that I think we all as PhDs know that what perseverance is, and we've been there. So taking feedback from people, and thinking of it very positively, because if someone's giving you the time to give you feedback, I think it's very important to really respect that time and incorporate, but you don't have to incorporate everything, because every person is different. So just thinking what suits best in your situation. But if you're getting the same feedback from many people, it definitely is worth thinking about. And then, of course, talking to people, which you are all here. So, and then taking the essence of the conversation, having well-prepared questions, and all these things listed out there. And in terms of resources, the ones which I used to understand my personality type, my strengths. So I did my IDP. I mean, I did most of these things at, we had like resources at the NIH. There were several different workshops. And I believe like most of the universities or institutes that people are in, they do have some sort of career development. Otherwise, these are all available online. And so I did my IDP. I started to think about what are the transferable skills I have, what I could use, what are my strengths, because I wanted to transition from a bench to a non-bench role. So you have to, my thought was like, if I can be successful, if I can play my strengths, then I can go and broaden my my areas and go into other areas also. So that was how I approached it. Then we have like NIH has several other like job search groups, seminars, the career symposium. And of course, STEMPeers, different sessions, and I did join Gurukul, so I would recommend it to everyone out here, like when you're actually closer to uh, job search, you should go. It's a great place to learn. And when I was doing the detail, I was like, okay, I mean, I come here 3 days a week. It's been a month. I like what everyone does, but will I be able to grow? Is this what I like? And then I reached out to a couple of project manager people in that role at at the STEMPeers platform. I spoke to them, and it was very helpful. It was very encouraging, and it helped me take the step and make the decision of accepting the job offer. So again, like, everyone is helpful, every conversation is helpful. So that's, I would say. And again, so I had a couple of these things, and I'll let Radhika take the floor now, and then we can dive into questions, whatever you have. So I'll stop sharing.
Thanks, Richa. Jasmine, I should just present my screen. Is that good? Are we good?
Yeah, we are good. We are good.
Okay, let me try to do that. I'm going to share screen. I think I am glad Richa went first. Mine is not that much of a structured path. It did, and I have only literally 2 slides. They're both the same slides. I'll show you why. And there is a lot of repetitive things, like the way that we went about it. It's kind of very similar, thinking, but I definitely did not plan it or know what I wanted to do. So there's a lot of what do I really want to do? So let me share my screen before we talk. Yes, there it is. I think you can see my screen. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Let me see if I can. Yes, that's better, I think. All right. So if you, let me see. All right, this is better. Yeah. All right.
Very
So
interesting.
obviously, I started back in India, where I am from, in southern India, where the bachelor's, master's, and then my first job after master's was actually a pharma sales rep, which is pretty funny, very off the path. And I was trying to work in a lab-based role, but there was the JRF has typically back home, an exam and a lot of interview and processes, and it was going on the side, but I think this was just my dad opened a newspaper and he saw an ad for this company, Novartis, and then he was like, this is a trainee job, they will train you, and you can, why don't you just apply and just go to the interview? If you don't like it, you don't have to take it, you're just waiting anyway. I was like, okay, this is sales, I don't know anything about it. And he was like, they'll train you, just try it out. So I think that I owe a lot to him. The spirit of trying out, right? I do owe a lot, and testing and not being afraid of new things. So I do owe a lot, and even before the that particular job, like even throughout my middle school and high school, it was more just go try it. If you don't like it, you can always stop. So it was that attitude that definitely helped. So I did that for close to a year, and I was like, I still want to go back to the lab. So back to the lab. And since then, yes, moved to the US for a PhD. This was a university. I mean, it's very more famous for basketball than cell and molecular biology. And it was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So definitely between my JRF and my PhD and my postdoc, I've switched fields completely 180 degrees left and right as you want it. So those are the things that I didn't even think about, because they were new things, but it does make me nervous, but I have to do it, because that's just there's just that spirit always to try new things and pivot to new changes. And it does make me nervous and uncomfortable the first 2 weeks before starting a new job, and the first 1 week or so I'm highly uncomfortable. I can say that, frankly, but I have to do it. That's just the way I am. Uh, so again, lots of changes. However, in my PhD, I definitely did not know that you have to network, or what is networking, or or there's more than outside the lab or any such thing like that. There was no network, and um, the Midwestern city that I was at really did not have that much going on in terms of industry, as you would know. So there is a reason I moved to, California. The other options being, Boston or any biotech hotbed, right? So I moved to Scripps in La Jolla, and where I did 2 postdocs. It was when I started out my postdoc. Within the first 3 months or so, my PI had me writing an IDP and a discussion about what you want to do. So I said, hey, I want to publish these many papers, roughly, of course, and go to these conferences and so on. And I want to also do, finish my postdoc in 2 years. So because I already knew from the very beginning that I wanted to go to the industry, and I did not want to be a PI. That was way back, even when I was masters and JRF. So I already knew that. It was more when and the timing, and also so I didn't want to do as long as a postdoc, and I said 2, and then I ended up doing almost 7. That was way too long. And then after 2, or about halfway through that, I was just okay. I think there's more out there, and that I want to know about, and that's how that introspection and so many things like started out. What can I do? What is really out there? How do I learn about it first? What do I like? Right? Asking those questions of yourself is more important uh, before even trying to reach out to every possible person out there, right? What do you like? As in, and that's a very difficult question to figure out, actually. What do you like? How do you know what you like? You haven't tried any of those out. These were the things, actually, questions that I had in my mind. So I'm sure a lot of you have it, right? How do you know what you like? I still don't know what I like. I mean, I like what I do now, but what do I want to be when I grow up is always something I ask myself, even in my current job, right? Where do I want to go from here? I don't know all the answers, and that's the fun part of figuring out your life. So I know that I was going to do a PhD or a postdoc, or work in these 3 roles in industry. I had no idea. I did not plan any of this out. That's why the squiggly lines are sort of finding my way. So after the 2 postdocs, the second postdoc came about because my first postdoc lab was closing down, and I had 10 business days to find a new lab. That's pretty much it. It was a highly stressful time. Thankfully, one thing I've had throughout all of these experiences as good managers. So I've been lucky in that they had my back for most of the situations in my life, or they've been strong recommenders for me for anything. So that's how I got my second postdoc, both at in the same institute, in a very related, somewhat related field, as well. So that helped. Um, and then it was the usual applied for jobs, but there's a lot in between in my second slide that went on before I landed into Thermo Fisher. So I first landed into something close to um, not a lab role, but something where I'm still heavily in touch with the science, right? So that was supporting scientists through email and phone as a technical application scientist, even to the extent. So since I was working on the qPCR team supporting the software assays and instruments. It would be even to the extent of looking at the data that they send, and finding out what's wrong with that. All the analysis that they would send you, you'd have to do that. So it's almost like sitting in a lab with them, but not actually picking up a pipette, right? You're not doing that part, but you're literally sitting and troubleshooting with them, or helping them um, design experiments upfront when they call you. What should I buy for this? How should I go about this? right? So it was really fun. Agreed about it. So, but you soon start thinking about um, how, what else can I didn't see myself doing that as a lifelong thing or even a longer term thing. So it was more how can the products help customers. And I think, although I don't like to use Apple products, I like how Steve Jobs has this launch and comes up on stage and launches this product, and I always look at that and think, what went into that? Like, how did they know that's the product they want to create? Like, what did what happened? So that's when I started talking to a lot of folks within Thermo Fisher, and some of them were technical application scientists from the same team who transitioned to product managers. So I was like, okay, you were my trainer for a few weeks before you left, so tell me now, how do you like your job, and so on. So that coffee chat or informational interviews, all that helped solidifying my next role. um, that was a different team. It was cell biology business unit in Thermo Fisher. Again, equally fun ride. I put a star on it because um, after a few months in that role, about 6 months or so later, I did start wearing multiple hats, and also worked as a project program manager on the side for the same product that I was a product manager for. So it was a lot of work to do two different roles, um, but wearing hats has its own advantage. You learn a lot. You're left with very less time. I can tell you that in life in general, but you learn quite a ton. And some of the projects were very small, so they weren't as well supported. So I had to go, like Richa mentioned, finding the resources. Resources were crunched. I had to be very creative on how I could ask for people's time when they were really stretched thin and be successful in having them give me their time. Right. So it's a lot of people management and how you speak to people. That is still something I'm learning, and this role needs a lot of patience, right? um, from there I moved to BD, where I'm at for the past, it's almost 2 years in April, and I support the flow cytometry monoclonal antibody launch programs and other reagents related to flow. So that again has been, I've done one flow experiment in my life, but really it's not about the experiments. Once you're a product or a program manager, you are definitely not necessarily the person who has done the experiments in that field. It's a different angle that you come from. A lot of those qualities and skill sets that Richa mentioned, right? Time management and so on, patience, perseverance, everything is really critical to being a program or a project manager. Um, Most important skill I still feel is people management, because you're working cross functionally. You're no longer an R&D person, even though R&D might be your favorite, or you might have a slight leaning towards R&D because you understand that more, maybe inherently because of all our training. You are no longer R&D, and you have to step away from that mindset, and you're working as a team, and it's the team. You have to learn to talk to other people, and they have to be happy to do work for you, even when you come to them that this is a deadline, it's urgent. They have to be happy to work for you. How to talk to people, that's definitely a skill I am still learning, but it is the most important thing, and it will come on the job. It's not something that you can pick up now as a graduate student or a postdoc. Like, you are doing that obviously in your role, but it will grow with you. So for my next slide, there are a few things. These things just didn't happen. It looks like a nice ordered path when you put it on a slide. It didn't happen just like that, and it was definitely not ordered. It was a lot of back and forth and confusion in my brain. And if I was going to step away from the bench after so many years of bench, um, do I really want to do that? Once I realized I do want to, it was more, am I wasting all my training of so many years by moving away from bench to a non-bench role. I feel guilty doing that. So these are all real emotions that some of you might have. And that's normal. That's completely normal. Um, it, it's very difficult, and sometimes if you switch to, depending on the actual company or the pay and the title, like you might be better off if you go to an R&D role where you carry a lot of experience coming into that role. Your pay and title might be better, and you might not get paid as much as that R&D role when you go into an off bench role. There is a chance, again, depends, highly variable. So, do you really want to take a pay cut to do that? There's a lot of questions. Do I really want to do that? What if I don't like it? And what if I don't want to go back to the bench? I had a million questions. These are things I had to think of myself and find answers for. So that part is not easy. Talking to people helps. People who have done that, people who have gone back to bench. Um, Try to talk to as many people if you have such questions in your mind. And what I did on the back end of these, to find my journey, I'm going to put a few things here, again, not as structured as Richa, because it depicts the confusion in my own mind as I went through this path. Let me try to move my slide to the
Oh,
next thing.
Radhika, I was all confused myself. It's just like, it's
Yeah,
not so. Yeah.
I know. So here are a few things I did on the back side. The postdoc, the 7-year, almost 7-year postdoc helped in a lot of things because I was not just limited to doing work in the lab. I started seeing that as one of the things I should do and keep my mentors happy by, producing publications and going to conferences and doing all those things. I was doing all that, but I once I realized I needed to do a lot more other things to find out. So it was more networking, thinking, sitting and thinking for yourself, right? What do you think you would like? How do I even know what I like? So one of the things I did early on was, there is a book, Career Paths in Biotechnology and Drug Development, and it's by Toby Friedman. She has been a speaker at STEMPeers San Francisco conference, and I met her there. That was much after I read the book, and the book helped me. I read the book front to back. I have to tell you that it's a really good book, and I went and told her that you've changed and you've helped me so much than you would even know. So it was really nice to meet her at the San Francisco conference. So a lot of things like that, personality assessment. What do you think you would like in a job, in a day job? It doesn't have to be what you're passionate about. You might be passionate about singing. If you can't make money out of it, what can you make money out of it with something that you like in your daytime, right? And you can do all the singing you want in your off hours, no problem. So 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 what do you actually like to do in your day to day? So those are the things you first want to figure out by reading or talking to people, but thinking for yourself, right? Do you like talking to people a lot? Do you like traveling a lot in your job? um, what kind of a day do you see yourself like being happy about doing that, right? And then you go pick what kind of careers fall into that bucket. So I went about that way. um, do I like a regulatory kind of job? I spoke to a lot of different people: regulatory affairs, project management, technical applications, business development. That was one thing I was looking at, consulting. So you can see I delved into a little bit through either coursework or clubs and activities, right? In my postdoc. So a course and consulting clubs, lots of other things. STEMPeers came at the very towards the very last 1 year of my postdoc, and that helped push me in out completely. That helped give me that push. But um, there were a lot of different things that I did, and the IDP and the Myers-Briggs test and other personality assessments. What I really like, lots help. The Scripps postdoc office was very, very helpful. They even did video mock interviews with me, and we watched it together. So lots of help from them as well. And then even when I moved into the industry, when I always had a chance that I could take a coursework on the side that would help me in my current role, I did it, as you can see, in both roles. Uh, if the company was paying for it, why not? So that was and if you're really interested, don't take it that you have to do a course to get somewhere. It's not mandatory, but it's if you have a chance and if you think you would learn something from it, and if you have the time, why not? Yeah, I will stop here. I know there's a lot more questions, so we should stop and let people ask questions, and I will stop sharing.
Thanks a lot, Radhika, and thanks a lot, Richa, as well. It was so important to listen to all these things which we probably don't know. So, if I will ask first a couple of questions, and then maybe participants will also start putting in their questions in the chat, and then I can ask those as well. Yeah, so for my one question is, yeah, you already talked about it a little bit, but I also still want to know how do you, both of you worked for so long at the bench, you did PhD, then 5-7 years of postdoc, and then how do you feel when you don't do work at the bench? I mean, do you miss it, or like how do you feel about not being on the bench and doing something different other than the bench? I mean, I know, Radhika, you already told us a lot about it, but how do you feel, Richa? Because you did so much of infectious disease work in your PhD and postdoc.
So I can share, like, I have not missed pipetting even for 1 second after I left that role. So making buffers, and I mean, I loved it when I was doing it. So, but I felt like there was a stage, I felt like I needed to contribute more intellectually or in different ways. And then the other thing, but like the first week when I was in my actual job, and like, okay, you're sitting in front of the computer. And then like after half an hour, 1 hour, I was like, okay, I need to get up, do something, like, because I was so used to like being on the bench. And then when you have an incubation was the time you would go to your computer, analyze data.
Yeah.
So that was a very different feeling for the first 1 week. But I must say, like, within 3 weeks of me starting the job, we were anyways, everyone was home because of COVID. So I think it didn't like really stick around that much, but I have not missed being on the bench at all. And I'm glad to have worked for so many years on the bench, because I can analyze different kinds of data. I mean, it's helped me build up a very strong skill set, which is helpful for this position. Yeah.
Thanks, Richa.
Same here. So no regrets at all. It was more when I mentioned the transition and the doubts around it, it was more the guilt, not necessarily that I would miss the lab work, which I was highly convinced that I was not going to miss. That I was definitely sure of. I was ready to move away from a non bench role to non-bench. So because even if I went to a non-bench role in industry, I knew within a year or so I would want to move. So I was thinking, why not make the transition now? I was not at all confused about that. But it is a transition, like Richa said. Wow, I don't have to go to the lab. What do I do now? It's just the computer and me. So there's that transition, and you have to learn to take breaks, which I'm not still good at, and I'm still learning that part. You have to do that, and unlike a lab setting where you have, you sit down for maybe a maximum of a few minutes here and there. This is very different. So it takes time to get used to. But if I did not have any doubts about missing lab work or any more pipetting, yeah.
So there are questions from people here. Ananya asked, continuing with previous question, what kind of project management courses are out there as a first step into the world of project management? She's trying to ask what kind of project management courses. So since you talked about project management courses, so maybe she wants to know.
There are different courses. I would try to pick real world experience over a course any day. A course can tell you a lot of things, but unless you really actually do it, um, and by the time you actually do it, you might forget the things in the course. So really don't take a course because you think that that might just be helpful for getting a job. Even I have had people who have a PMP. Again, there's a question about a PMP I see in the chat. I've had PMP fresh PMPs reach out to me, right? They have an either undergrad or a master's, and they did a PMP, but they don't have real world experience. So even then, when they apply, it's very difficult because a PMP still is not a guarantee of a job. A PMP, I feel, looking at the content and the way that exam is structured and the study material, like you should really know that you want to do it, because it's very intensive to study. You will pass it maybe even if you're not a real program manager or a project manager in your real life, but um, it's not as useful if you're not already in the role and have a little bit experience to put in that much time, because it's not a guarantee of, oh, you have a PMP, here's your job, here's your attractive pay. It doesn't work that way. So there are a few small courses if you want to test the waters. Even those are like UCSD extension or UCLA extension, continuing education programs. But again, those will also run up to, per small course would run up to $500 to $600. So if you really cannot spend money and time, I would just get more actual experience doing small things on the side. Even you can spin your PhD and postdoc experience as a project management experience, depending on how you talk about it. You've had collaborators, you've had people in the lab. That's people management. That is time management. You have all the skills. You just have to build it into a story, right? I'll stop here, but I know there's more questions.
Yeah, so Sakshi is also asking that we as PhDs have the skills needed for PM role, but how do we convince people in hiring us? So this is also, I was also thinking about it. How do we convince people in hiring us, even though we have the skills?
It's just what I said. You have to see what are the skills needed for that role, right? And you will see your own experiences. It still does take time to sit and think, and you will realize you do have all that when you're writing a paper with co-authors, when you're doing a project with co-authors where you're doing a few experiments or most of it, and others you have to bank on others to do a different kind of assay. That lab might be in the US, somewhere else, or international. So then you're working for a common goal. Think of that as your launch date, right? Your paper is your product, and then you're working backwards on how to work with them to get things done. How can you talk to them? Everything is that skill set, right? So you are going to you won't say you launched a product, but you're going to write the same exact things in terms of your paper, who you collaborated with, how many, a team of 10 people, or whatever you had in your going on at that for that project. So there's a lot of uh, ways you can build that story. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Richa, do
I
you want
think
to?
it's just about, yeah, it's about using the language which you'd use as a project manager. So like you have to quantify things, like you had like 5 collaborations, then all of us face like certain sort of challenges, and there are all these risk management, mitigation strategies. So how you strategize to come out of that problem is the work of a project manager. And we've all done it so much in our PhDs, like experiments not working, resources not being available, like animal models and stuff. So again, it's how you, and when you're tailoring your resume or talking to people, you don't talk so much about the science, like you don't go into the details of the science. I think it's a fine balance. It's very important to tell them that you know the subject. And then another thing which helped, so like when I was doing my looking for detail positions, volunteer roles, I interviewed at like 5 or 6 places of non-bench roles. And one thing which helped me was sharing my experience, co-chairing the neurobiology interest group. So anything that you've done outside of actual, like anything, just use that. And I also remember like one of them in the interviews, she asked me, she was like, tell me something which you've done other than like the bench work or stuff related to your science or PhD. And guess what? I told them about uh, at people from NI know. We used to have a lot of sports events, and I told them I organized the badminton matches at NI. And I mean, so it was just anything outside also. So anything that you do, it helps, like, because we all have those skills, and it's not just PhD, it's your overall personality that you can share. Like looking at what the situation is, of course, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for answering that. It makes so much sense, actually.
Yeah.
So somebody is asking, how much does visa versus green card affect these types of job prospects in industry? Whether
Great
having a green card will
question.
help you in landing these kind of jobs. That's what her question probably.
I don't want to be discouraging. Like a green card obviously takes out all of the paperwork and processing involved if they were to sponsor a visa. So obviously that moves the process faster. I
Mm-hmm.
agreed, but there it depends on the company and the role you're getting in. Like if you're directly going into a business development, project manager, program manager, or any other role, it it depends on the company and where they are and how much they need you. So I would not when in my postdoc I initially had the J1 visa and then for a short time the H1, but I did apply for roles while on the J1 and early H1 as well. So I did get interviews. Some quite a bit of them were cannot sponsor. That happened as well. Some were open to it. The ones that were open were a 99% match to my role I was doing in the postdoc. So it was not a project manager role per se, with an intention to go to that path. But uh, unfortunately, all of those got the hiring got frozen in 4 companies due to restructuring. So there's a lot of like disappointment in that those were the companies that were ready for, if I was the candidate to sponsor. So a lot of things can happen between willing to sponsor and actually getting that as well. So it really depends on the company. I would not stop trying just because you don't have a green card and wait around for a green card. I did a longer postdoc because ultimately I thought I would just want to get that green card for just for the sake of myself and my family instead of just moving on with visas. So that was the path I taken. But again, I had interviews even with people fully knowing that I need a visa. So depends on the
Richa, do you have?
company. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, of course, green card makes everything much simpler, but I mean, I started my job as a on a H1B because again, like this is NIH, so it's more academic government. So they did sponsor H1 for my job, but I also would encourage, like, so there are a lot of nonprofits also which have like project program management kind of roles, and there are places which do visas as well. So it's again, don't stop yourself. I mean, sometimes it can be more challenging if you don't have a green card, but it's like it's not possible.
Yeah. Thank you so much, both of you. And now there is another question from Rupali. She's asking, I heard different titles. How is project management different from product or program management?
Okay. Richard, should I take that? Okay. So a product manager is completely different. Some companies have a little bit of a blend. I will tell you about that in just a minute. But project and program, I a program manager could be something of a not managing just an individual project or a group of projects, but manages also like something beyond that, like maybe the pipeline, or oversees a bigger set of projects with multiple teams or deliverables, and also multiple, like that whole pipeline, right, start to finish. So it's a little bit one step higher level, but a project manager while still could work with one program at one level. Again, a lot of these things are dependent on what industry you are in. Like typically biotechs have like project and program and so on, but a pharma might just actually have project manager, and and they are actually the program managers, right? They do that job. So but the title, they're most lot of companies I've seen, pharma especially, they some of them have call them as project managers. So but they are in essentially project, but they also manage the pipeline. So it depends on which program you're in, which company you're in. There's a little bit um, uh, variability in how companies use that title as well. So but on a purely theoretical level, this is what it's supposed to be. A program manager will manage multiple programs or a bigger like pipeline, but a project manager might be one project. But in reality, it depends on the company and the industry, and the team as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Thank
mean, I totally agree. It depends. And like, again, Rupali, depending on, I would say go and look up the job description. And one thing which I felt like in a couple of job descriptions, I noticed that it was a more, the role was more like operational, and like it didn't involve so much science. So, because they were probably looking for someone with just a bachelor's. So those kind of positions sometimes, because after doing a PhD and postdoc, you have reached, you want to utilize your intellect to a certain degree. So those can be really demoralizing or boring, those kind of project manager roles. So looking for something where they are wanting a PhD level person is always helpful. So, and they use so much, like, and like as Radhika said, program is in a lot of industry, it's like a little higher up, like a bigger umbrella, and then it could also go up to like a portfolio manager. So it's a term used differently, like.
Okay. Is the pay a little bit different or the pay is similar?
I don't
So
know. It's, I think,
depends.
very variable. It's,
Very
I think, the
variable.
overall description of your job and the years of experience. I mean, like in our institute, it's like project managers. Then recently they said, okay, some are senior project managers, but there's like, and someone who's a program manager has an entirely different meaning and role. So I think it's just those titles sometimes are can mean
Yeah.
different things here.
Yeah, and a
Thank you.
product manager, I know somebody asked what's a product manager. That is definitely an entirely different track, where you are associated, like you're still you could be in a marketing role, or that's where most product managers play around the marketing, the business forecast. How much will this sell? How much money it will make us? And hey, did it make that much money that I said it would, right? So those kind of considerations. Where can I sell this product? The entire world, or just Europe, or US only? Those kind of decisions. What should I price it at? How are competitors going about the pricing, about where they're selling? So that's more business oriented. I had a lot of fun with it, definitely, because you also get to speak to a lot of customers which are scientists, right? And define the product. What should my company launch next, right? Or can we come up with something new with R&D's help? So that's again a very fun role. But being a global product manager is definitely painful, because as lovely as the title sounds, I was working in 5 different time zones, starting from 5:30, and had very, very less time. So I did not like that part. That the global was truly nice. I could speak to a lot of colleagues across the world, but after a while it gets tiring.
Yeah. Thank you so much then. Then I have another question from Anusha, who is saying that I took a break from my 4 years of postdoc, and it's been almost 3 years now. I have been trying to rejoin industry for an year now with two young kids, and I have a green card since the past few months. I focus on project management positions now as I would like to get into research management. I do land up in few interviews, so my tailored resume is getting noticed, but doesn't go further than the first round. Not sure if I am naive in answering some of the questions, being in a hardcore wet lab background. Not sure what I lack in between. Are most project management positions open to taking people who do not have direct experience in the role, or how should I filter and find those who are willing to accept people with our background?
That's a great question. It's a difficult one, and it's
Yeah.
very seems like it needs a personalized answer and looking more into your situation. So I don't want to say one thing or the other. I think people are willing to accept, but again, depends on where the company is at and if they want someone who has some prior experience come in and learn very quickly and get on the job, compared to a different kind of role. So we might have to talk offline and figure out where you are at right now, what kind of experience, and what you actually how the interview actually goes. I would still, the tailoring the resume is great, and you're getting noticed, so you're doing some things right. So it may not be completely you, that it could be the company, right? Don't put it all on you. There's a lot of things, like I told you, I had 4 jobs, back to back interviews, and it was going very well, 99% match with my resume. The hiring managers were supportive, they reached out, and so on. Everything got frozen in restructuring, and they were all great companies. So I was very bad, but it wasn't about me. So you have to sometimes see that you might think I took a break and so it's on me, or something is happening that I'm not answering it right. May not be you, but we have to talk separately to figure out what kind of roles you could apply. But Richa, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I totally agree. It's great and a difficult one. And the only, I don't know, I mean, again, it's a very personal, like, what was the interview? And, but like sometimes, like for anyone who doesn't have the, like, experience of project man, like being coming from, like experience in the non-bench role as such, because we all have experience managing projects. So one thing which I think is helpful is showing that you are really ready to learn, and also like and showing that by sharing experiences where you have been very proactively volunteered for things or picked up stuff like while during your PhD or previous experiences. The other point which you could also look is like, so I think a lot of, again, like what is that project manager role, like what kind of thing are they looking for? So sharing some of the knowledge for what that actual role is, like what kind of projects there are. Because I know, like when I joined, I was a fresh postdoc, but and similarly there were one or two more colleagues who joined in the same role. But now in our group, they feel like they would like to have someone who understands drug development. So it's not like the project management, but it's more about preclinical drug development. So I don't know if that could be a gap somewhere. But again, happy to talk with you offline to discuss in more detail. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is so helpful. So right now there are no more extra questions. But people also can unmute themselves and ask questions if they want. It's not necessarily has to be through chat. So I just wanted to tell that to
Yeah,
everyone.
I just want to
Everyone.
add that what Richa was saying, and we were saying earlier, writing or talking about your experience in lab in the language of a project manager is definitely good, because you've done it all. uh, and second one is also doing other things right outside of your life, day job. um, and that those experiences would also help because they're non professional or non day job experiences, but they are going to teach you something. For example, I since 2012, the second year of my postdoc, I was a volunteer with Association for Women in Science, the San Diego chapter. So I started out as a member, then organizing events, and then I was a chair of a committee there. So those kind of experiences, it does take a little bit time, but when you're a chair of a committee, then you start leading a team. In my case, it was 10 to 12 people for a goal, right, towards that particular calendar year. Then you're learning that team management skill, and you have a goal, so you're working towards a project with a goal and with an end date and with an actual, in our case, I was in the corporate sponsorship committee, so we do all of the fundraising that this nonprofit needs to support all of its activities for the year. So we have a dollar value to raise from STEM companies in San Diego. So A, it gave me the opportunity to network, and B, you learn to have a goal and lead a team with that goal in mind to reach a specific number or a metric, right? And so you look at that. So what is this if this is not project and team management, right? So and my interview conversations were very less about the actual lab experience. I tied it in, but most of the other things I did outside, definitely that's what I really spoke about in length. Yeah. So don't be afraid that I just only have lab experience, or I don't have this straight project manager experience. It's not about the title, it's about the things you do. You organized, like badminton, right? Or cultural association, like you were an organizer, you were a treasurer, you were a secretary. These are all things that add up. Speak about them, speak about them, and use those experiences. You have learned something from that for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to go back to Anusha's question again. Like, so Anusha, I think another thing which you could potentially do is like wherever you interviewed, you could like after the you can write to those people and ask them for feedback, because tell them like it could help you improve, or like, I mean, ask them for a genuine feedbacks, and I'm sure some, at least one or two people will let you know what was the, and if you can learn something from that. But like as Radhika said, it could also just be the situation and circumstances, and not just like we all hear, like landing in the right place at the right time. So it just could be that also. Yeah. Sorry, it just came to my mind, so
No,
I thought
no,
I'll just
sure.
share
That's
it.
really good.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you. No, thank you.
yeah.
So another question from Rupali. She is asking, uh, is it easier to move from academic to industry project management?
I don't see like it should be different. Yeah, it should.
Yeah, I don't see
And
any issues. If
yeah,
anything, it adds to your experience, right? And that would be actually making it easier.
yeah.
Mhm. Thank you. Then we have few more questions here. Sandhya Singh is telling one advice that you both would like to give ladies with kids, and how do you manage everything? I sometimes suffer with mom guilt. How do you have to deal with it?
Richa, you want to take it, or I can? Depends.
Yeah.
There's nobody. We all
Yes.
have mom guilt, so
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, and I mean, it's like it's any kind of job you are in, like And personally, I feel like it's very important for me to be growing as a person so that I can be a better parent. So I don't see it more as like that I'm staying away from my kid. But if I'm growing myself, if I want to do a job, I'm passionate about it, I'm happy and content inside. And that is what will ultimately be reflected in my body language and the environment in the house. And in terms of like, there are days or weeks when it gets really stressful. And usually, I mean, with this role, I feel like the one flexibility is there that I can work like late at night. So after my daughter goes to sleep, I can finish up. Or otherwise, again, having a supportive partner is always helpful. Right now, she's being, my husband is babysitting her. So like, so you always like, it's more like a team. And, but you're not doing anything wrong by taking care of yourself, doing a job that you like, you're passionate about, because your kids will see that and they will grow up as those kind of human beings.
Thank you,
100%
Richa.
agree. Kids do see that as an example, and the mom guilt and all is going to be there. Some days it's actually mom guilt, sometimes it's work guilt, because some days, working days, your work is more important. You have something important going on. You're having this presentation, you're having this thing, big deadline. That's your day. Everything is on fire, right? You didn't expect that day to be like that, and you wake up and there's like people pinging you out of like crazy, and there's three fires. You're working on those things and you don't have time for this. And if you have a supportive partner, perfect. Then I just send a text to my partner. I have multiple fires. Deal with everything today. That's it. I'm out. Right? It happens. Some days the family is more important. Even if it's a working day, then you're off work. You tell your manager and you go off work. There is no guilt about one versus the other. You just have to. You will learn to manage it. And believe me, there was one bizarre job interview that I had. It was for a bench role, phone interview, and there was a male interviewer who would be the hiring manager, who actually asked me this question: how will you manage? I was very mad at
Isn't
obviously
it
very mad
isn't
at
it
him.
illegal in the United States to ask
It
this
is
kind of question?
it's probably, but this was a very small company. There's probably
They
not
didn't
even
even
an
know.
HR department in that company to advise them on this, right? You have to think from that standpoint too. So when I had the question, I was like, "Oh, you don't
Not
have
going
any
there.
HR training. You don't have any HR training." And I just told him that he doesn't have to worry about it. How I will manage work, I have done it so far, and I know to do it. And I hope nobody asks you that question. And I said I'm not interested in discussing further. So I finished the call at that point, because I
Good
really
job.
would not be interested in that job anyways,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So don't
exactly.
even think of how you would manage everything. It'll be difficult, but like any new thing, like learning to swim or drive a car or bicycle, you will learn it and it will come to you. And as the kids get older, it will be much easier. Like I have one child, he's almost 12, so it's pretty much autopilot. I don't have to do much.
Mhm.
But when they are younger, it's a little bit more involved, and there's more work. You will manage, and if you have a little bit of a flexible job, honestly, the postdoc and the PhD is much harder, because you don't have you are in the lab. You don't have as much flexibility to, let me work at 10 p.m. and in the lab. You may not want to do that, because you want to be awake in the morning when they're going to school. You don't want to do an all-nighter experiment. You don't have the energy and the mindset to do that, right? So in these kind of jobs, you do have that flexibility.
Mhm.
So post dinner, I
Yeah.
definitely come to my computer to look at things. Like everybody's everything is done. It's my time. I might look at my computer or my email at that time. Yeah.
And I'll also say, like, I totally second what Radhika said, like in PhD and postdoc, you are so much more bound. I remember like taking my daughter to the lab when she was 2 weeks old because I had to finish up a revision for a paper. I mean, so like, So, but over here, one thing is I noticed, like at least in my current group, there everyone is human and they do understand that life happens. Everyone has families, everyone does understand, like you have medical emergencies, and people are very respectful of that, which I felt like in that postdoc phase. I'm not saying that my supervisor was really nice, but still, it's that this, I don't know if it's us, there's this some kind of strange expectation that you have to publish, but and like you have to finish your experiments and deliver. We have deliverables in this job also, but they are much easier to achieve. They're like much shorter deliverables, and then the other thing also is like like, I mean, I like to take the day off when it's my daughter's birthday, so I block my calendar so there are no meetings. So those are things I can plan well ahead in time, and so you always find that family balance. But as Radhika mentioned, there are days when there, and it happens for both, like it could be me or my husband, like we're like, okay, I am unavailable today, and like we all balance it out.
And also
So
part of this managing everything question is more taking care of yourself too, because you need to have the energy to, it's like the advice before a flight takes off: put your masks before helping others with their masks. Do that, put your mask on first. I don't mean the literal mask for COVID, but take care of yourself first. So throughout my postdoc, when things started getting a little bit comfortable, my PI was, I had published, she's confident in me and in my job at Thermo and BD. I would take once in a while a PTO just out of the blue, where my partner and my partner's at work and child is at school. So that's my time. That's my day. So
yes.
I would just drop him off at school, and that's my PTO. I wouldn't do chores at home because we will immediately fall into that trap. I would just go for a walk or go eat out at a restaurant by myself. By myself. I don't want anybody. Like, that's just my day. Or I might go for yoga. I don't know what I do. I don't have an agenda. I just took a recent one. I just watched Netflix the whole day. I have to
Makes
tell
sense.
you that I didn't do
I am
anything else.
inspired.
So this is my mental health day, or whatever you want to call it. So when things get a little bit crazier, and then I'm like, I need that break now. That break, my special mom vacation. Right? I do that once in a while, and it helps a lot, because you're not no one's around, nothing to do, you don't have work, you're not supposed to work, you're not supposed to do chores, mind you. That's easy to fall into, that you'll start cleaning immediately or doing something. Just take a break, step away from all of it, go for a hike, go do whatever. Yeah, go to the mall, go watch a movie. Just step away, yeah, from life.
Thank you, Richa, and thank you, Radhika. You guys are giving amazing answers.
Because
Anusha,
that's what keeps us ground, like takes us, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a battery recharge, right? But don't
Mhm.
wait for things to fall apart either. Just do things you like on a weekly basis too. So it's not necessary you have to wait until things break to get a PTO, right? And then do all of that. Like, have something hobby on the side. I know it's very difficult, and I've had struggled a lot with it. I used to try to go to the gym. I still try, but it's only like try. But I have a weekly, I don't know to swim. So as an adult, it's much more difficult to learn. So I have a weekly once swimming class where I'm learning to swim. So it's again a new skill set that
yeah.
I am so afraid of the water, but I still have to learn it because I
Do
want
they
to.
teach here? I actually will ask you later on, so I will.
They do, you can find places. So it's been fun, and it's been something that I do for myself. There's absolutely no time, so I figured out I could learn swimming in the same place as my son learns in this, and luckily we got the exact same slot. So he's in one lane and I'm in another
That's
lane.
nice.
So it worked out perfectly that I'm anyway sitting there watching him swim. I might
Yeah,
as
you are
well learn
doing
it on
something.
another lane.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's my for myself, right?
amazing.
And I'm going to do it. So don't wait for everything to break and have a PTO day. Just do something on a weekly basis, taking a walk, anything, just by yourself though.
So Anusha says that she wants to have ask few more questions. Anusha, do you want to
Uh,
ask directly? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much, Radhika and Richa, for such insights and really a lift up. So, as Radhika put up, really I was taking on a lot of blame on myself because the background I have, if I was applying for a scientist position or another postdoc, I would have not taken in all the blame on myself if I didn't land up on a job. But since this is a new path, I felt like whatever I was answering in the interviews or the way that I was applying to the jobs, it was really not reaching out to the hirers. So yeah, that's one thing. And I did ask for feedbacks from some of the recruiters, but I never got back any response from them. And honestly, I was applying for these positions when I was still in H4. And at that point, some people were really interested in, like, one of the companies, they offered me, they were ready to offer an operational manager instead of project manager because of my background. But they rejected straight away because I didn't have an authorization to work in the US. And now that I have one, I feel like I'm still not gaining any further. So yeah, it's a bit confusing as to where I lack
What you
in.
should do, right? What
Yeah.
yeah, it's what should I do now? I know. It did, honestly, even when I got my green card, it did take a several months to get the role. Obviously, um I was trying for multiple, trying to swim in multiple boats. So I did get more than one offer eventually when it came through. But there was a little bit lag. Companies take time and some things don't work out, even with a green card, right? Even
Mhm.
even with the green card. So there is that. Um, we have to look at what kind of jobs you're applying for and how is the interview going. So this definitely needs, reach out to me separately, happy to help on looking at like a little bit more into the specific, details on what's actually happening, right? And maybe
Mhm.
um, if you've been on a break, maybe we need to apply for a different kind of bridging role first and then go into a project or a program manager. uh, um, we can talk about it and see if that might be an easier path, and if you're open to it, right? Not necessarily that you have to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. That would be great. Thank you so much.
And I'd say another thing, Anusha, you could potentially
Mhm.
do is like the places where, like, you see the job opportunities, just reaching out to the people in that company in that sort of a role, doing informational interviews with them, trying to know what that role is like. So that could help you. And then just talking to them, asking them, and maybe, like, if you want, like, I don't know how it happens with, but if there are possibilities of shadowing people, volunteering for a bit in some places, and that I
Mhm.
think could happen more in like nonprofits, or I don't know how it works for industry, but so maybe those are also a couple of things you could try.
Okay, yeah, that seems to be a good idea as well. I haven't done that before.
And in terms of like the feedback, I don't know if it's worth like asking actually the people who interviewed you, not the recruiters. Maybe like me, I'm
No, you're
I
right.
don't know.
Actually,
I don't know, yeah, how many people would do, but I would feel like if someone reaches out to me asking for feedback, I would try to give it to them, help them out, because the people who are on the job have been in this situation sometime or the other, and if they have the time, they will. And it's not like many a times people just are too busy on that particular day with, or that particular week, so they just falls out of their radar, and that's why they don't respond. So that's why reaching out to multiple people and you could get some insight from somewhere.
Okay. Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you,
again, if you
Richa.
reach out, you may or may not hear back. So, but again, don't take that on you. It's really,
Mhm.
if they don't have time, they will not reply. And you can reach out. You never know who will reply. So continue doing that, but
Mhm.
don't have any expectation that they may 100% reply. Oh, they didn't reply. Don't be disappointed by that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you so much.
That's a lot of great questions.
Mhm.
And you guys gave answers very appropriately. So I have a
Yes.
couple of questions now. There is no more in the chat. So could you please tell us how your day-to-day job looks like, each of you, for Richa and Radhika? Like, we know how postdocs are, how PhD, how you work in the PhDs, but how is a daily work routine in your office or whatever? What things you have to take care of in your job, Richa, and then in your job, Radhika?
So, I mean, one thing of the different part is it's every day in front of the computer, lots of Teams meetings, and responding to emails but in terms of the other, like the documents and stuff that I would be working on, is that, since I said, like in drug development, we are contracting out studies to different CROs. So sometimes we are working on those statements of works, or when we are selecting those CROs, so we are working on those kind of like trying to look at reviewing their proposals that they send us. So those would be one thing. The other thing would be trying to read up the FDA guidance on the particular drug modality which is in there. So ensuring that things are aligned well. So and then it's more or less like communicating, coordinating, like driving the whole project. And that's just by ensuring there's communication between all the partners involved. Yeah.
So how much of the science part do you think you have to take care?
So science, I mean, like I said, I'm not like a toxicologist or a process chemist, so I do not have to get into the nitty-gritties of that. But I do need to have an understanding that what are the things in process development which happen for maybe a gene therapy product or for a peptide modality, so that when so that like maybe I'm speaking with the clinical team, but if they ask me a question related to the process development, I should be able to answer that. Or I don't have to give them a very granular answer, but I need to have a overall understanding of each of the elements of the whole project. And then I'm working in a rare disease space, so it's not like a particular field. It's I have like couple of metabolic disorders or neuromuscular, and so there's like it spans throughout. But so again, it's the overall field that you're in, but knowing all the elements of your project is very important in how our studies designed around that.
Radhika?
So the day to day, have you heard of this cake called Death by Chocolate? So
Yes.
this is like death by meetings. So there's a lot of meetings, like Richa said. Yeah, she agrees. Yeah, there's a lot of meetings, but I've recently learned or trying to kind of decline or be optional on meetings where I don't have to be. If I'm just there to listen in, somebody can always send me the meeting notes after the meeting. I don't have to be there. So it's more a self-preservation technique that I don't have to be in every meeting. People can take care of themselves and give me the updates, which is all I need to know about it. I don't need to run their show for them. So that's also a part of project program management, where you have to just um, not get too deep involved into any function. You're running the program overall, so you're not running their day to day for them. So they sometimes reach out to you because you're the default person to go to, right? That there's the tendency to do that. So you will be dragged into lot of meetings that you don't want to be in or don't need to be in. So I'm learning that art now to step away. So there's a lot of meetings. Um, Everything is definitely a meeting. I go on site 3 times a day and sorry, 3 times a week, and twice a week I'm working at home. So before we started that, it was all the days at home because of the pandemic. So there's that nice flexibility. Right now, we have to go on a like specific 3 days, but that works because then there's a lot of people in the office that you can meet and talk to in person, which I enjoy definitely than the constant Teams interface, right? So
I
that
have one
helps.
more question that I was
Yeah.
thinking for you, Radhika. That you said you hardly did flow cytometry, but now you are at BD, where you
Mhm.
are taking care of the flow cytometry things,
Mhm.
not as a scientist, but in a different role. So, how exactly that works, if you can elaborate a little?
Again, I said, like Richa mentioned too, you don't have to be a toxicologist to be a toxicology program manager or a project manager, right? Same thing. You are a scientist, so if you read something about neurosciences, even if you're not a neuro person, right, you will understand that because you have that background and training to take anything and dissect that like little bit, look at it and think about it critically. That's what you should learn from a PhD and postdoc, not necessarily your field. You will learn that anyways, but the skill set you're learning is more taking something, analyzing it, thinking about it critically, right? You always have that, so you will be able to understand different fields. So flow is and immunology is just another field, so you'll be able to understand. I don't um yeah, initially like there's that little bit time that you're learning, but there are a lot of R&D people in the company. If you really want to know, you can ask them. That's their cup of tea, and they should be able to advise you, right? How do
Mm.
you look at this? And you really don't need to look at data and analyze that as a program manager. It's R&D is a subject matter expert, so leave it to them, right? They need to tell you, and you need to make sure um, to tell them that they need to be very sure of what they're telling you, so that when you communicate about program milestones and deliverables to the leadership, you have the backing of R&D, approval to say that, right? So that's what you need to communicate, not exactly how that data looks like or you understanding every single thing about that data. So when I some of the meetings that I have is not just the leading the program, it's communicating upwards, right? That's equally important because leadership needs to know, hey, where are things? They always want to know where's everything, how's everything looking, right? They want to know the pulse is things, and the risk management, seeing, how do you call it, looking around the corner to see risk over there, way far over there, but you know it might happen, so you need to anticipate that and put things in place, which is called mitigations, but putting things in place. If that were to happen, what would you do, right? You have that plan in place, discussed with the team, so that when if that ever happens and it becomes a reality, then you're ready to go with your plan B. So you do that in real life too, so it's kind of similar. So a lot of meetings and communications are uh, upwards with leadership, right, on how things are looking. So that's an entirely different skill set, one you will learn how to talk and how to present, and depending on who in the leadership, you can go a little bit into detail or just give a high level news headlines, single line, single bullet point. That's all they need to know, right? So it depends on how much higher they are. And a lot of meetings are my program works like a funnel. So we have a lot of different antibodies out in the world. If we're talking about antibodies and reagents that immunologists and flow cytometrists use, which ones do we want to launch? Which ones can we launch, right? So there's a lot of like, and then which ones actually work in our labs to be able to launch, right, in terms of experiments. So there's a lot funnel that comes through. So seeing that whole funnel and managing, making sure everybody's doing their part and overseeing that whole thing. And then the products that come out are also used by other teams in the company. So involving them early on, so that they are updated as well, and passing on that to those other teams. So it's a little bit, those are other program and project managers that I work with, right? So there's a lot of that too. Yeah.
Yeah, you are like the bridge, like holding it. Sort of
Yes.
thing.
Bridge, glue, whatever you want to call that.
Okay, so we have reached the end of the session. I think it's 1 p.m. and it was really nice. A lot of people are leaving, so I think we can end the session here. Thank you so much, both of you, Richa and Radhika. You took your time and you came and you gave your time to talk about your experience and how people can get to these jobs, what to expect in these jobs. It was really helpful. I think a lot of people might reach out to you on LinkedIn now and ask you more questions.
Definitely.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much, Radhika.
yeah.
I really appreciate your time, and it was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Thanks so much, Jasminara, Sakshi, and everyone. And I mean,
Yeah,
it's great
we'll
to
be
be
in
here.
touch.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks so
Yeah.
much.
Okay.
Yeah, Sakshi, Jasmine, and Ajinkya, everybody who's reached out for this and otherwise. But that's how we did it. I think back in 2017 when I joined Gurukul, early 2017, before I transitioned, and there was the ability to reach out and take initiative, and then just quickly talk to someone on a phone and know about things like that. Just keep that in mind and pay it forward when you have a chance. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Thank you
all
so
these organizing all these sessions is working towards your soft skills, so which is
Yes.
great
Yeah.
for your resume. Yeah.
much.
Yes. Okay. Have a nice Sunday, everyone. Yeah. Long
Yeah,
weekend. Yes.
long weekend. Yes. Have a happy long weekend.
All right. Have a
Bye
good day.
bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.